Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Imagine that it's 1981 and you're cruising the Atlantic shores of the Hamptons with your friends. Bikinis are fluorescent, polo collars are popped, and boat shoes are rocked sockless. In the background, your booming sound system is playing the soft rock sounds of Olivia Newton-John, Toto, Kenny Loggins, the Carpenters, Michael McDonald, Hall & Oates, Christopher Cross, and Air Supply. The Docksiders are made up of music industry veterans led by three-time Grammy nominee Kevin Sucher. Their unique tribute act of your favorite soft rock songs of the 70s and 80s, now defined as Yacht Rock, have been entertaining thousands of people for years. And the rival of this genre and audiences are only getting bigger. The Docksiders have just finished a headlining residency at the Rio All Suites Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas and are your only choice for the best yacht rock tribute in America. Show-stopping hit song after hit song, costume changes, and production is only topped by their world-class performance. Kevin Sucher has worked with high-profile artists across multiple genres, including pop, singer, songwriter, electronica, rock country, jazz, hip-hop, gospel, and R&B. Woo! His clients include Eric Benet, The Tenors, Najee, Train, Michelle Branch, Sheryl Crow, David Foster, Luann Rimes, Gloria Stefan, Diane Warren, Gwen Stefani, Olivia Newton-John, and the list goes on. Please welcome the three-time Grammy Award winner. I'm not sure if it's three-time or five-time. I heard it both ways. Mix engineer, producer, artist, manager, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, singer, and member of the Yacht Rock group, the Docksiders. People call him the Captain. I call him Renaissance Music Man. Kevin Sucher, interviewing the legends. Hello, Kevin.
Ray, it is an honor to be with you today. What an introduction. That's incredible. I got to add one little thing to the list. It's
Okay.
the captain of the Bald Guys fan club. So I'm
I like
also a
that.
proud bald man.
It's a three-time or five-time Grammy Award.
You know, it's a bit of a discrepancy, which is funny because it was three, but
Okay.
I have four plaques on my wall. So I
Okay.
think the magic number is four.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, four-time nominee, an absolute highlight of my amazingly changing and ever evolving career.
And of course, that was with Eric Benet's album. Sometimes I cry, Lost in Time. That's incredible, man. What a feat that is.
Yeah, thank you.
Now you've been involved with so many things. Let's talk about the Docksiders first. What's happening with the Docksiders? I do have a list of shows that I can go over, but let's hear what you have to say about the Docksiders.
Yeah, I mean, I put this band together in 2018 was our first show.
Right.
And we built it in my hometown at the time where I was living of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Right.
And it had been 20 some years since I had been performing. I had had a number of other careers in the music industry and in the film industry, and it was just one of those things that I think was a combination of meeting people throughout my life and being in the right place at the right time with music that really touches people. Soft rock hits of the 70s and 80s to me is the most breathtakingly written, pristinely produced, and amazingly performed music in my lifetime. Guys and girls that were making this music had to be able to play their instruments and had to sing, and the songs were so brilliantly written that to be able to really dig in or have the opportunity to dig into these amazing productions was a dream come true. We had just a really quick burst of success with the project in our hometown. We built it pretty smart, playing just a small residency, and we took that and kind of parlayed that around the country. And there were the first couple of years we were playing to some thinner crowds just to kind of get our name out there. But it was the
Right.
type of thing that once we put, 40, 50 people into the room. The next time we would go back, there would be 400 people in the room. And then the next time we would go back, we'd be looking for a bigger place to play. And I've just been very blessed that I have been able to kind of come back to my roots as an early performer that had gotten me away, as we'll talk, I'm sure, a little bit later, into the other areas of my career.
Sure.
But coming back after 20 years of being on stage and performing, to do it at this level, to be able to bring this kind of happiness to people, and to now be a Las Vegas headliner, I would be lying if I didn't tell you it was a dream come true.
That's incredible. Well, a lot of people know about me. I don't like when original band members are not with bands anymore. And people that I talk with now, kind of like the Little River Band, Foreigner, Yes has only got Steve Howe as an original member now. I don't like that. But your band blows these guys away. And I really mean that. Everyone needs to go see your band because you guys are incredible. The musicians are awesome. The voices, you, your wife, and everybody else that sings in that band is and you guys are endorsed by the legendary Tony Orlando.
Right, hearing it still makes me want to pinch myself, and I can't believe that it's true. But thank you for that. And we've been, there's been a handful of people that have said just what you said, and I'm very humbled by that. I always set out to pay the most honest tribute that I could, and to me, like you, I feel the same way. I when a band goes out without the original members,
Right.
It makes it a little different, right? It's not the same thing that we grew up or
Sure.
fell in love with. And when you start changing the palette of colors that you're then feeding to people,
Right.
it inevitably is going to have different shades of colors, right? It might be similar, but it's not the same. So when we approach, doing a song like Ambrosia, for example,
Yep.
like it is my primary goal to replicate the record, if not as close to exact, but to be as exact as possible. So people that come to our shows say those sort of things, that they're like, holy cow,
Yeah.
this isn't, some loose interpretation of songs that we grew to love, but this is a group that is really accurately representing the music that they're doing. And if we can't do that, it doesn't make our set list. It doesn't even get close to our show.
Have you guys, or maybe you already have, thought about creating an album with, because you guys got all the talents of songwriting. Why not?
Always percolating. And
Yeah.
we, I've never announced this yet, so we're breaking this on your show, but
Oh,
we
great.
have an original album. The Docksiders have an album of original songs.
Wow.
Written by the legendary L. Russell Brown, who, wrote Tie Yellow Ribbon Round the Yellow Tree, wrote Knock 3 Times, wrote Come On Marianne for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. And then it was also co-written with Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
we've
incredible.
got this album. Yeah, it's great. And it's been sitting for almost 2 years. I haven't put it out into the world yet, because inevitably there's so many people releasing music every week. Like there's more new music coming out that we couldn't ever consume.
Right.
And I feel very good about this music, and I don't want to just throw it out there and make like just kind of an initial splash and then have people forget about it or think about it. So I'm trying to really think hard on how we could find a real way to get it out in front of people.
Well, I will promote the hell out of it when you finally do release it.
Thank
And I'm
you.
looking forward to it as well. I just want to mention some of the upcoming shows you got. You got a private event coming up in Grand Rapids. You got the Ford House, I guess, in Michigan, coming up July 6th. I'm surprised you're not doing anything July 4th, like a festival or something like that.
Well, the closest that we're getting to the 4th of July, we're playing Summerfest.
Okay, that's July 8th in Milwaukee.
Yeah, which is our hometown. We usually make an appearance or two there. This year it's going to be a second. Summerfest is our second show in Milwaukee this year. We played in January at a theater that we love to play very much, the Pabst Theater in Milwaukee. And yeah, I think when the holiday falls at the beginning part of the week, it makes it really difficult to not attack it on a weekend prior or after.
Right.
But I think that Thursday will still be good. I'm hoping that people will still be looking forward to having fun. It's the first time we're headlining that festival too. We're
Wow.
very honored and humbled to be asked to be one of the headliners this year.
Now, offline, we talked about Vegas. Maybe some possible shows in Vegas as well coming up. Are you in negotiating with that, or what's happening?
We are so very close to announcing our new
Okay.
Vegas residency.
Good.
I was hoping to be able to break that on your show today,
Oh.
but we are still just. I mean, we're within days away of really officially being able to announce it, but we're really excited about coming to Vegas. We moved here to open our show last year,
Right.
and we opened in August of last year, and as you mentioned, we closed it in November of last year. So this kind of break that we've had being in Vegas to find the next situation that we're excited about has taken some time, but we're really excited to announce it very shortly.
I'm excited, and when that finally gets released, definitely post it right away, because I may plan my trip to Vegas around your shows. That's how I plan my trips.
Let's do this. That'll be great.
I'm all about the shows in Vegas. You know,
Sure,
I'm not a big gambler.
sure.
I'll gamble a little bit, but I'm all about the shows.
Awesome.
So yeah, we'll plan our trip around that. I was going to hold this back for the later in the shows, but I can't. I've got to talk about you as a solo artist. Your music is great, and I just wish more people heard what I heard, you know, and get the word out, because you deserve so much more than what you're
Wow.
getting on YouTube. You know, you got some
Thank you.
incredible music out there. I'm going to mention some of the songs I loved. I mean, you had your debut album, I guess, which called Kevin Suker. You had the live at Shank Hall, and you had an album called My Songs, and they're all incredible. They really are. And you had a couple of official videos out there, like Why, from a long time ago. You had a different look back then, by the way.
I did.
Well, you have to. You have to change.
Hopefully that'll stimulate some of your viewers to go research that particular video. There's a really funny story about that video, if you don't mind digressing
Sure.
a little bit. But I had dreadlocks, as you're referring
Yeah.
to, and they were hair extensions that the director suggested making, you know, a bit of a change to my look at the time. So I sat in a chair, no joke,
Yep.
for about 9 hours having these things
Whoa.
glued in my hair.
You're kidding me.
The glue gave my scalp issues, and I had a reaction that when I went to the doctor said, these have to come out immediately. We have to cut these out. And since that time, I have shaved my head. So I have been bald
Ever since
that video was filmed.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
My wife, when we went to Jamaica, she put the dreadlocks, you know, in her hair. You know, that somebody would come around the beach and do it for you. So her
Sure.
and my daughter both had it done, and her head swelled up from that
Right.
and the sun, because I guess it was too tight. We had to she had to go to the doctor in Jamaica, and it was an all, you never know.
That's the business, right? The braid people are in cahoots with the doctors.
Exactly. I guess they were too tight or something. Some of the songs I really love. First of all, you did a hell of a job with Something, the Beatles cover. Oh my goodness, your voice was great.
Thank you. That was a song that I've just adored. At the time, I was dating who is now my wife.
Right?
She is the most amazing musician and singer, and I'm not saying that because we're married.
You're right.
She lets me stay in her house, but she she is also the world's largest Beatles fan, and I'm sure that could be debated with a lot of other huge Beatles fans. And when I was trying to impress her back in the day, I wanted to cover a Beatles song, which to me is like hallowed ground, right?
Hmm.
Like, how do you really cover a song by legends like that and do it justice and make it your own,
Right.
but yet not stray too far? And it's a really other cool aspect, little note from that song. But the bass player from the band Ambrosia is
Hmm.
playing on that track, Joe Puerta,
I know Joe.
who's now the lead singer, who's out with the current version of Ambrosia.
He's such a nice guy, isn't he?
Such a great guy,
Yeah.
right? And I was honored to have him guest on that track.
How about
But
that?
yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That was I always would put, when I did my solo albums, I would always put one cover song or find something at the moment that was really moving me
Right.
to try to do, and that was that song at that time.
And they're fun to do. Covers are a lot of fun to do.
Absolutely.
I got to mention Mrs. Suker because she did a hell of a job with Nicolette Larson's "Lot of Love" because that's one of my favorite songs. And
Amazing.
I was in radio since 1979. I did top 40 radio, and that was one of my favorite songs to play on the air because of the intro with the sax. You guys nail that, man, and that's not an easy song to
Thanks,
sing
man.
either in that
You know,
key.
you are very in tune and astute, because that has been the one song in my wife's repertoire that she'll look at me, prior to the show and say, I don't have that one tonight. Let's pull that from the song list.
Hmm.
It is a really difficult song for for a singer to sing,
Yes.
and it is a very great song. Like when we were putting the original song list together for the Docksiders, what I learned is that there's not a ton of what's considered yacht rock songs
Right.
for females to sing.
Right. You're
But
right.
there are like what I call the calling cards that
Yes.
are must do's, and that to me was an absolute. We got to figure out how to get a lot of love in the set.
I have a suggestion. It's not exactly yacht rock, but your wife would probably nail this. You did a song called No More Left to Cry, okay? Which reminded me of Sade. Let's put
Ah,
some Sade into it. I mean, it might.
A- again, Ray, you are on the same wavelength here, and this is what's interesting is, you know, what I've done with Ari. There's a lot of yacht rock tribute bands
Right.
around the country, and what I've done to try to separate us from the pack
Mm-hmm.
is that we do choose to blur the line
Mm-hmm.
with what I would call other soft rock hits. Now, there's soft rock, and as a radio guy, you understand this better than anybody. There's soft rock pop hits, there's soft rock R&B hits,
Yep.
and it you can find in that era of, late 70s to early 80s,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of songs that make a lot of people happy that don't necessarily fit the traditional yacht rock
Exactly.
title, which is
Sure.
very niche, right? It's very specific of a certain group of musicians that
Mm-hmm.
played on almost everybody's records in
Right.
that time frame, that was recorded at a specific area, and it needed to kind of have these sort of benchmarks. So we do blur that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the suggestion of adding Sade to the set. That's kind of cool.
People love Sade, and I don't know if she's retired or what's going on with her, but she hasn't put out a song in years. So to hear that in your set would be incredible. It really would.
I agree.
Yeah.
And there's the song that my wife and I used as our first dance. And if she were sitting here right now, she
Uh-huh.
would be berating me. I was in charge of selecting the music at our wedding a long time ago, and she absolutely hated when we had our dance that I picked a Sade song. She said in my ear as we're dancing, she's like, "You've written this beautiful music for me, and this is the song that you choose to make our first dance." So I still haven't lived that down, and it's going to be 10 years. this
Oh man,
June.
I could listen to her, and she always had a great band behind her as well.
Right.
Great musicians.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So
Who
good.
who sang "I Promise You the World"?
Wow. That was a song that I wrote and produced for a project that I co-created in my hometown of Milwaukee in 2008. We ran it for 4 years called the Rockstar Project, and
Uh-huh.
it was a local American Idol-like competition where
Right.
we found singers, auditioned them, put them on radio and on television, made them local celebrities for the period of time, and we partnered with the NBC affiliate and their sister radio station in Milwaukee, and the grand prize was a song written by me, produced by me, and then added to a radio station. And as you know, an ad is a very, very valuable commodity. In
Right.
2004, Billboard had to rewrite the rules of how a song could chart because the single that we wrote charted based upon one radio station's heavy play. And we learned that they weren't going to be charting singles that were heavily spun in one market any
Hmm.
longer. But that was an amazing singer that we met. Her name is Alicia Miller,
Hmm.
and she was the winner of the competition. We had auditioned hundreds of singers and whittled it down to a top 20, and then to a top 10, and then to a top 5, and then a final 2, and she won.
Wow.
And what a great
She's
singer,
incredible.
right?
Yeah, I love
Stellar
that
singer.
tune.
Thank you.
Great job on that. Of course,
Thank
"Begging
you.
for Mercy," another favorite tune that I
Thank
love,
you.
and "Because I Love Her," another great song, and
Awesome.
"I Never Fell Out of Love."
See, there's a similar theme that I tend to
You think?
That's awesome.
Let me tell you,
I'm writing a
man.
new song right now, which some songs feel special
Hmm.
over other songs. Some songs feel, you obviously feel pretty good as you're writing, but some just have a different sort of special thing. And there's a brand new song that I'm writing called "Broken Hearted" that I think is, one of those special songs. At least right now, it feels like it's got something different than a lot of the
Right.
other songs I've written.
You're an
So I'm excited.
incredible songwriter. I mean, I'm surprised other bands haven't, asked you for your, your expertise, for,
Thank you. Yeah, that songwriting business is a really tough business, and you have to go out and
yeah.
lobby to get your songs recorded, and
It's a moneymaker, though.
major money maker. Yeah.
But when I see a talent like you, I just wish you had more PR. You know,
Thank you.
because you deserve it. And there's a lot of great. I work with a lot of progressive rock bands overseas, England, Australia, Germany, and they're not getting any coverage here in the U.S. So I do a
Sure.
lot of Zoom interviews for them because they're so talented. And a lot of guys do, they're multi-instrumentalists and they put out albums by themselves, like you say, and they produce it and engineer the album, and then they do it all. So that's still popular. You can still do that if you want to.
Listen, I owned a commercial recording facility for
Right,
almost 20 years. And when I started going on the road, it was the type of thing that I needed to kind of determine, do I pay this lease payment while I'm not there?
right.
And I chose to move the studio into my basement at one point in time. And the room that you're seeing me in right now, I wish I could turn the camera around, but this is I'm making an album as we speak
Yep.
in this room. I've got the microphone and the preamps and all the accoutrement
It's
to
amazing, isn't
do
it? You don't
what I
need that
need to
big
do, and
studio.
it's
Yeah.
so crazy. I don't need to be in a huge
Yep.
room any longer.
All you need is Pro Tools, basically,
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a bit of an
I've
ear.
always wanted to be an A&R guy, and back in the day that was a big deal, but I don't even know if they have them anymore. You were hired by, was it Truth Records?
Hmm.
You worked for Truth Records. What did you do for Truth Records? I know they hired you as a president and CEO.
Hmm.
Uh, what was that like?
Yeah, a really interesting time in my life. The company idea was my idea. I had met a couple oil guys from Texas, and I pitched them. I heard they wanted to get into the music and the movie business.
Right.
And I was at a point in my career where I was looking for my next thing. I was managing an artist at the time, and it was going nowhere. The artist was very okay with not stretching their uh, creative potential. And as a manager, you only, I would say to people, you eat what you kill. And when I was bringing opportunities to the artist and the artist wanted to just stay very comfortable, it was the type of thing
Right.
where, I couldn't grow. I couldn't figure out how to change my destiny in that regard. So it was time for me to move on. And I met these oil guys through a mutual friend, and they wanted to get in movies and music. And they flew up to Chicago. Actually, they flew up to Milwaukee and picked me up on their plane, and then we went down to Chicago for a night. And while we were there, it was to get to know each other, and then to kind of pitch the idea of what my company idea was. And they said, we'll fund it, and we'll make you
Hmm.
the CEO and the president. And it was one of the most challenging times in my life. It was rewarding in a lot of ways because as I was setting up the music company, the Truth Records, which was intended to be an artist management company, a music
Hmm.
publishing company, and a record label to
Right.
service our own clients. Um, they were they had the chance to be part of the executive producer team of a feature film that was being made, and they had no experience in the entertainment world. And they said, "You understand entertainment. You've been a manager for 15 years. Help us navigate the deal of
Okay.
bringing us on." And I did. And the film that we executive produced was called Dallas Buyers Club,
Which
which
I've seen.
Matthew
Great
McConaughey
movie.
and Jared Leto
Yeah.
won 3 Oscars, and
Yeah.
we were there for the whole process of the film. I'm an uncredited executive producer
Why?
on that
Why is that?
film.
Why uncredited?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
I
get
mean,
that.
there's a whole different kind of story that's wonderful about how, I was able to negotiate the deal and put some things together, and then the oil guys, once we had success, decided that they didn't want me involved anymore because I
Oh,
had
jeez.
a significant piece of ownership.
Right.
And you'll learn a lot about the people that you're in business with by how they treat you when all of a sudden things start getting really good.
Exactly.
And what I learned from that experience was that, you know, oil guys had no clue about
Hmm.
how to be involved in creative business.
Yeah.
And it was the type of thing where there was more energy spent educating than actually doing the work, and explaining than actually doing the work.
Right.
And it was a blessing in disguise when it was time for me to move on. And from every experience you take lessons, right? You take
Sure.
learning things. So I'm grateful for the experience that I had, and I'm grateful to have learned what I learned. Some of life's lessons are a little bit harder than others,
Oh, yeah.
uh, but nonetheless, it was an interesting experience.
Were you on the set? Did you watch him film?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was there on the set quite a bit. We filmed in New Orleans,
Hmm.
principal photography. Some of the other pickup shots were done in Texas. And I remember meeting Matthew on day one. And, in the tabloids had reported that he had lost like 40 pounds
Right.
to be in preparation of the role. And I remember seeing photos of him, and it wasn't until I saw him walk out on the set for day one where there was actually somebody holding his arm, walking him into this
Unbelievable.
library. And
Yeah.
that, I mean, clearly
Yeah.
an amazing, amazing actor and creative person to commit that hard to that representation. It was amazing. I remember reading the script while we were flirting with making that film, and I was on the plane coming back from Houston, and I remember sobbing, thinking if this script can't win Oscars, I don't know what I could read that could. So
Right.
it felt special for a lot of reasons. And then,
Yeah.
when Jared Leto came to film,
Yep.
talk about a method actor, that he traveled in drag,
Mm-hmm.
and he got off the plane in heels, and he was
Hmm.
in character from the minute he walked on the set too, and just an amazing experience, right? It was breathtaking to see how the film was shot. Jean-Marc Vallée was the director, and I'm a producer by nature, so to learn how the process is done, and to watch the setups of the cameras, and to see how they're using natural light, and to be all encompassed in quietly observing all of these technical details, which just
Mm-hmm.
really excite me, to getting to go to the director's screening in LA. Once the movie was cut, we went to the first screening, and got to watch the film before they made the final cuts with all the studio people there. And just an amazing process
Yeah.
from
It's exciting. It
making
really
the
is.
deal, watching and being part of the filming, and then the after
Yeah.
excitement with all the awards and the film festivals that we did.
My wife loves McConaughey. Of course, a lot of women do. But we felt bad for him because he was thin for a long time, even after
Yeah.
I think the next movie, and we were really worried about the guy.
It,
And
we were it was the last night of filming, and
right.
it was a bar scene, and it was inside the bar, and there was a wrap party uh, afterwards
Hmm.
at the location, and we brought out a bunch of food trucks,
Right.
and everybody just kind of celebrated and congratulated each other. And I remember asking Matthew what he was looking most forward to,
Hmm.
and he said, a cheeseburger. It was just so charming, and he was just such a nice guy,
Yeah.
and very, very, very humble. And
Yep.
it's great to meet
I
people
like
that have
him.
had
Yeah.
success and are,
Yeah.
don't really fully believe their own stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I've been so blessed with all the interviews I've done with these legendary artists and my heroes because I haven't had one guy turn me off. Everybody's
Great.
been wonderful. And I've done
Awesome.
over 500 interviews. So I'm very lucky.
Wow.
I'm
That's
very, very lucky.
that's very, very cool.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. I was 10 years old,
Yep.
and I've always wanted to tell this story publicly. And I never really had the opportunity. When I was a kid, I always thought that someday on David Letterman, if I was
Hmm.
lucky enough to make it, that
Right.
I would tell this story. And I was a huge baseball fan.
Hmm.
And I'm a huge New York Yankee fan because my
Hmm.
grandparents lived in New York while I was growing up. And
Sure.
Reggie Jackson was my hero.
Okay.
Can I curse, or is this a
Yes.
non-cursing
No, you can do
platform?
anything you want on this
Okay.
show.
So I want to say it was either the late 70s or very early 80s, but it was when he was still playing with the Yankees. My dad took me to see the Yankees play the Milwaukee Brewers at County
Hmm.
Stadium in Milwaukee.
Right.
And being a huge Reggie fan, I went down to the dugout a couple times in between innings when the
Right.
Yankees
Cool.
were up to bat. And I think I remember sticking my head around the corner of the dugout, Mr. Jackson, could I have you sign my ball? And it was probably the second or third time, and he was within feet of me. He looked at me and he said, go back to your fucking seat, kid.
Oh
I was
man.
10 years old,
Oh my God.
and I was shattered. Like, this was my guy. Like,
That's
Reggie
horrible.
Jackson was my hero, and he cursed at me and told me to leave him alone, basically.
That's
And I
bad.
went back to my seat really, really upset. And my dad said, what happened? And I
Hmm.
told him. And I said to myself, if I ever get lucky enough to influence people someday, or to
Hmm.
be in a position that people want to speak to me, I don't care who it is. I'm going to be kind, and I'm going to be generous
Hmm.
because we put people as fans in
That's
that
right.
place where they get to be adored, right? They get to,
Exactly.
you know, they're
I agree.
great at what they do. It doesn't necessarily make them great people if they don't treat people the right way. And when I managed artists and I saw how we would be sitting at a restaurant and people would come up and say, I want to have a picture taken.
Mm-hmm.
It's a responsibility that
It
artist
is.
has to it's part of the deal. When you have fans,
Yeah.
you have a responsibility to be cool to those fans, or you don't have a gig, or people won't talk to you in a way that could help your career continue to flourish.
Kevin, especially baseball, because that's tradition. The
Yeah.
autographs when you were a kid to get, I got a story about Reggie too. I used to live in Fort Lauderdale. I went to broadcasting school there. It was a CBS owned, and the Yankees played their preseason games. Now they're in Tampa, but they did play in Fort Lauderdale.
Right, I remember.
So we went to see, me and my buddy went there to watch batting practice. There was only maybe 5 people in the stands, and the only people on the field at that time was Reggie, Piniella, and I think Munson. And somebody in the stands was yelling, "Hey, Reggie," and he turns around and says, "I'm working here. Leave me alone." So, yes, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. I don't know. Like, to me, I would never look at a child and curse
Of course not.
at a kid. And,
That's horrible.
As an example, we took our 8-year-old son, and my mother and father came to Vegas to hang out with us. And my dad is 80, and he had never been to spring training to see our home team, the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have a facility in Arizona. So we took a weekend and we rented an Airbnb, and we all stayed together and went to 2 games. We saw the Dodgers and we saw the A's play. And granted, it's spring training. I understand this is a different thing than Major League Baseball season and game time and all that. But, my son walked around with a ball and had 26 autographs on it, and everybody was generous. Everybody was kind. I remember going to my first Cubs game that my father took me to. I want to say it had to be in the 80s, because Bobby Bonilla was playing for the Mets. And I had never seen this before, but Bobby Bonilla walked up prior to the game, opened the gate at Wrigley Field, and walked into the stands, probably 20 rows up, surrounded by people, and spent a half an hour autographing.
Very cool. Very cool.
And to me, it was like, that guy gets it, right? Like, that guy, it's that one selfless act that makes his legend even bigger. Right.
And as a kid, you remember that for the rest of your life, And
I didn't get his autograph. We were further away than where it was, and I didn't have anything, but I still remember it, right? Like, Reggie Jackson could have been larger than life to me, and right now I could care less about his trials and tribulations, or I
agree.
I thought he was a great ball player, but shitty person.
My hero is Brooks Robinson. I'm from Baltimore originally, so I grew up with the Orioles. So I got to play with Brooks Robinson. I did a fantasy camp. That's what you needed to do. It was called Dream Week. Cool. This was 1990, and I was up at third base. Brooksy's up at plate.
Wow.
Willie Miranda is the third base coach. Bob Baylor was my coach, but the other coaches were Paul Blair, Earl Weaver. I mean, it was so exciting, I
love that story. That's a cool story.
Brooksy's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, like, he'll sign for hours,
Cool.
He's such a great guy, He's
third
getting up
baseman,
there in age,
right?
What's that?
Third baseman?
Third base, yeah. One of the greatest third basemen in history.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the year after that, 1991, Joan Jett played at Dream Week because she's a big Oriole fan too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love the Orioles. One of my best friends lived in Baltimore for about 20 years.
Right.
And we would play in the Inner Harbor. And when we would go, I would always try to go to Camden Yards. I was hoping that the team would be in town. What a gorgeous facility.
Yeah.
And what a storied franchise, right? The Orioles are just such a great, great franchise.
Yeah, they've been having a hard time over the years, but they look pretty good this year. They got a good team, I think the rebuilding process is finally over.
Sure. Well, you're preaching to the choir. My home team seems to not be able to find a way to get to the promised land. We've been
Yeah, they're
close a
getting
couple
there.
of times, but
They're getting there.
82
Yeah,
was our glory year.
yeah. I know. I know. Here's a my claim to fame as far as hanging out with a legend. I spent 2 hours with Ted Williams.
Wow.
I had a store, a retail electronics store in D.C. at the JW Marriott Hotel, and he's a real gadget buff. So first, I taught him how to use his camera. He had a 35 millimeter Minolta camera, and then he comes back with a friend of his and bought two shortwave radios. And you can either take Ted, as he likes to curse.
Okay.
God damn it, he's John Wayne. Put it that way. So
Sure. It
either
seems
you
like
love
he
him or
could
you
have
don't
been.
like
Yeah.
him.
Sure.
But I loved him. I love his character. I love the way he was. Um, it was getting late, and he says, "Son, what time do you close the store?" I said, "Mr. Williams, I close when you're done shopping."
That's
He
right.
said, "God damn it, you should be a goddamn politician." That's how he talked.
Wow.
He was cool.
Very cool.
He
What
was
a
very, very
legend.
cool. Yeah. Well, let's get back to you,
Yes,
Eric
sir.
Benet. Talk about your relationship. You've been with so many artists, Stevie Wonders, Gwen Stefani. How does that evolve working with all these people?
Yeah, I think it's just it's so funny. You said some pretty heavy stuff a while back. You said, I wish I would have had more PR
Right.
as an artist, right? So my career started when I was really young. Like I was playing piano and keyboards when I was 10, 11, 12, and at the same time I was like, an addict of Casey Kasem's Top 40. So
Mhm.
I would sit
Yep.
on the floor with a boombox, and I would listen every week to the top 40, and I would write down the songs in ascending order, right? In order from lowest to highest, or
Hmm.
yes. And then I would cross-reference in my little 10, 11, 12-year-old brain why certain songs would move up and down the charts. So I was making music. I was learning about the production and sounds that really excited me, and why certain sounds made people excited, or why I thought songs worked on the charts differently than other songs. And when my career as an artist kind of came to what I consider a screeching halt,
Hmm.
once you get to a certain age in the industry, it's a very youth driven,
It
pop music
is.
is for that matter.
Yeah.
To really make your mark, you have to be of a certain age, and you really have to kind of have the machine, the big
Hmm.
record label machine. And I got relatively close to getting a deal.
Right.
Didn't really happen. I kind of did a left turn. Like I decided that I didn't want to get out of the industry because I loved it. And I had skill on the studio side as an engineer and as a producer and as a mixer.
Yeah.
People used to say when I was making demos, like, what studio were you in to do this? And I'd say I was in my parents' basement. Like, I had a knack of really kind of making things sound good, at least to my ear, as somebody who heard things a certain way and wanted to recreate certain things. So that took me to managing
Hmm.
artists. And I think that put me in the room in a very different kind of way. I was a creative, I had songwriting chops, I could produce records. I spoke the language of engineers,
Hmm.
frequencies and technical ideas and parallel compression, and I heard things in a way that could be of assistance. And being in the room when when I was going from Eric Benet's tour manager to front of house engineer to recording studio engineer and mixer and co-producer, and then Stevie Wonder, I get a call saying Stevie Wonder's coming to the show. Um, you're going to mix him too. And then that turns into just, you know, they say luck is just the opportunity of being prepared.
Right.
when the opportunity comes. And I
Makes
think
sense.
that's the secret sauce of my career, is that
Sure.
I was ready to be put into those scenarios where I wasn't going to fail. There was
Yeah.
no way I would let myself not kill it. I was going to try everything I could from every aspect of what I have learned to be put into a scenario where I could step up and excel at what I did. And I've been very thankful that that is what's happened. And it's no more than not giving up on my dream. And it's no more than, when those years of discouragement and not getting to be where I thought I should be, or where I aspired to be because of whatever reason, that I just kept forging forward, thinking even baby steps might get me a little bit closer. And I'm again, just amazing when you read some of those names and I hear those names, and I still look up on the wall. Like, you can't really see, but my Grammy certificates are all sitting here, and
Hmm.
it's a reminder that that my time is, even in a very small way, has been validated, that I'm I'm okay within myself
Right.
to continue to do what I do. And I looked forward to, those opportunities, like with Stevie Wonder and uh, Eric Benet and the Tenors and David
Hmm.
Foster and Olivia Newton-John, and it's a dream come true. I feel very fortunate when I talk to young kids too about inspiring and mentoring. I said music has taken me all over the world multiple times.
Hmm.
In a million years, I never thought I'd go to Japan. I've been there, you know, 8 times. Like, to
Yeah.
me, that's like amazing, right?
Yeah.
To say that my passion and my skill and my the way I treat people has helped get me to see these breathtaking things, and meet people there, and have friends in different areas of the country. I think that's like that's the meaning of life, is just
Yeah.
trying to be good and to put good out into the world, and to really connect with people on a human level, and realizing that we're all the same, right? We're all struggling in
Sure.
the same
That's
ways, and that we
true.
all have insecurities, and that
Yep.
we all have, hopefully people that support us along the way in our dreams and our passions. And that's why it's really cool to meet people like you too, that like you're, hearing your story and learning about the amazing work that you do, and how passionate you are about interviewing the legends, right? Like,
Yeah.
that to me is like very inspiring to me, that I meet like people that
Yeah. Sure.
have still follow their dream and their passion.
That's
So
what it is. It's a dream.
yeah,
I've always wanted to be the next Johnny Carson. I was a big fan of Johnny, and
sure,
to sit behind a desk and just interview people all day like that, I always loved it. So now
sure,
doing this, it is a dream come true, because I was always about the music since I was a kid.
right on,
I love music. I really do. But I never had the
absolutely,
patience to actually play. I play some guitar, but I never had the patience to really play it well. You know what I
sure.
mean? So this is the next best thing.
I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it.
But you're such a commodity, man. I mean, you should be revered in the industry. There's not a lot of people like you. I talked to producers and engineers. Um, Michael Franklin. I'm a friend with Michael Franklin. He's a producer, and he's working with John Anderson with 1,000 Hands 2, and he's putting out a lot of records. With artists now, and he's all over the world and everything, but you don't get a lot of that. Peter Asher, I know Peter Asher, his story, but a lot of these guys are getting older now. So
Yeah.
you need guys like you that are still relatively young that can influence today's music. And there's a problem there, because music is nowhere like it used to be when I grew up, you
And
know?
I think you're getting to the tip of like what my discovery has been,
Right.
is that, and when you mentioned Renaissance man a while ago,
Hmm.
I believe that. And I also believe that the business changed while I was still kind of developing my old school tendencies, right? Like
Right.
I am an old school producer. I am of the producers of the ilk of the producers that I dreamed of being in the room with.
Mm-hmm.
The Phil Ramones
Right.
of the world, that modern day producers, I'm not taking anything away from people's skills or
Mm-hmm.
what they do, but making a record today and especially in the pop world is very, very different.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I learned how to make a record while before the digital revolution happened. I learned how to cut tape. I
Mm-hmm.
learned, that you had to get a performance done correctly. I
Mm-hmm.
learned that you had to pay attention to the way the microphone was picking up the instrument that you were putting in front of. Like, there's
Yeah.
a skill level that today's modern engineers and producers, because digital is such a thumbprint of exact, that you don't have to pay attention to. It doesn't make it any better.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make it any worse. It just makes it different. I'm
Right.
just, and to try to save the risk of sounding like an old guy that's like, I remember back in the
I
day
know.
when
I
we
do the
used
same
to.
thing.
But I think that there's, like,
Yeah.
I think the business lost me, if
Yeah.
that makes sense, which I'm
Right.
fine with, because I found my path, right? My
Yeah.
path is something I'm very satisfied with. I don't need any more validation in my world. I'm very grateful and I'm very blessed. And I used to think, like, I needed my peers to think that my work was great. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that meant the world to me, that other peers and producers would say, "Wow, that guy,
Sure.
he's moving some stuff in the right way."
Right.
And I've had that, and I'm very grateful for that. But I realized that that was my insecurities. And as I've gotten a little bit older, and you have children, and you start realizing the way of, life passing you by, that those
I
aren't the
know.
things that matter.
I know.
No, that's not what matters. I just want to get up every day, be
Yeah.
grateful that I get to still make music,
Yep.
be grateful that my music and my brand touches people and makes them happy,
Yeah.
and be grateful that I get to get on a plane and go entertain in Boston, and I get to go
Sure.
entertain in France, and I get to, I mean, to me, and then I get to make my music in this room here, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be. I've done it. I've done the big studios. I've done the big things, and it's beautiful, and just as beautiful as this is too.
Well, you get to have fun with the Docksiders,
I
I mean,
love it.
that's got to be a lot of fun to be up on stage and people dancing to your music out in the audience, especially in Vegas, you know?
It's so cool, man. Like, I put a really talented band together with guys that I thought, had put in a lot of years, that had never gotten to that
Right.
stage of where the Docksiders were going to go.
Yeah.
And, I made some mistakes. I put some wrong people in the band at the beginning, but right now, the current version of the band, uh, I couldn't be happier.
Hmm.
And I finally am having fun, leading a band of no drama,
Hmm.
and, just wonderful. That, half the battle is when you take older musicians and give them that opportunity, in a way that, maybe they were just playing like local summer festivals, and now they
Right.
have this opportunity to get on a tour bus and travel and airplanes, and you're almost saying to an old dog, "Hey, you got to learn some new tricks here." And it just, some personalities don't work that way. So, we've really kind of, refocused the group, and this current version is the version that, I just said to my wife, at our last show. um, this is fun. Like, I can see myself doing this as long as people will have the Docksiders.
I'm going to talk about the writing aspect real quick. You did write some songs for some artists that get a lot of recognition. Um, let's see, all I ask, my heart is here, right? These all made, they were on the Billboard charts.
Hmm.
You did something. You had a song you wrote for, I think, Bon Jovi, Santana, Celine Dion. You wrote some music for them as well?
I did. They weren't recorded. Back in the day, my
Right.
manager at the time had been pushing songs that I was writing, and we would get, from the record labels, they would send out like weekly sheets of who was looking.
Mm-hmm.
So those artists were looking for songs, and we had what's called a hold, where they would
Okay.
hold the song so no one else could record it in case they wanted to record it and put it on their album. And it was this sort of like commodity game at that point. So
Hmm.
none of those for those last three artists made the album,
Right.
but they were held
Gotcha.
for the album. At the time, really exciting as a young person to think like, wow, Santana coming off the hit of his resurrection in Smooth with Arista Records and Rob
Mm-hmm.
Thomas of Matchbox 20.
Yeah.
To think that I could have had a song on his next album, that was a monstrous process. My first placement of a song that I co-wrote with a brilliant co-writer by the name of Steven Sater. Steven went
Mm-hmm.
on
Sure.
to win a number of Tony Awards. He wrote the musical Spring Awakening
Mm-hmm.
that won a ton of Tonys on Broadway with Duncan Sheik, another
Mm-hmm.
great pop artist. And so Steven and I wrote a song called Was It Ever You that was recorded by a boy band called B3. And that was the first time I had ever heard a production of mine recorded by another producer and another band. And it
Hmm.
was a magical moment to hear your music being recorded by someone else.
That's very cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, one big hit and you retire.
Right? Right? I'm coming to live in Florida with
Yeah,
you.
exactly. The Docksiders got to come to Florida, man. You're going to be so huge over here. I mean, we live the lifestyle.
Totally, right? And we were, I think I told you this when we had our first conversation. We were supposed to come to Florida in 2020 before the pandemic happened. We
Yeah.
had dates booked, a number of dates booked.
Hmm.
And once the giant pause happened where live music and all interaction with human beings stopped for that time, it just kind of went away. And, for no fault of anybody's, we just haven't rebooked anything in the Florida area. A lot of times with us, we like to, if we're going out, we like to make it worth, traveling. So
Hmm.
to put a handful of dates in an area that you can then build from around other areas is
Right.
obviously the key to touring. And we've been, for the last 2 years, a year and a half since we've been back from the pandemic, the East Coast was something that we started that we had a lot of success in. That was like, okay, let's get back out East once we start playing shows again to, have people remember who we are and come out. And
Sure.
that has been kind of obviously our bread and butter was the Midwest where where we're from originally, Chicago, Ohio, Illinois, Ohio,
Hmm.
Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minneapolis, Minnesota, that region we've done quite a bit. For some reason, the South has been a little bit elusive as of late, but we're doing some obviously with the presence in Nevada now. We're doing some Utah shows, we're doing some California shows, we're doing some Arizona shows. I'm breaking all this news here. We haven't announced any of these dates yet. They'll be kind of popping up from time to time on our website. And we have to be careful because, we're opening the show back in Vegas again. We have to really make sure that we're creating our brand of Yacht Rock in Vegas the right way, and not,
Right.
going to be splintering our efforts with the touring and a Vegas residency. So it's going to be interesting to try to find how we balance traveling with playing here as well.
Well, when you're ready in Florida, I've got two venues in mind for you guys. Okay.
Great.
Clearwater and Largo. There's two really good venues there that would be perfect for you guys.
Awesome.
And I could hook you up with the promoter there.
Wonderful. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to help you guys because you guys are incredible.
Thank you.
Here's your question, your final question here.
Yep.
I ask everybody this question. I get a very interesting answer from this question. And the question is, if you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to work with, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be? Or write for, be a songwriter for?
Wow. Wow, that's a great question.
Could be a whole
I be,
band.
right, yeah, or a band. That's a really great question. So, I have I have two, and they're pretty far apart from each other. Um, if I could collaborate with Paul McCartney, I think that would be just a massive
Hmm.
experience in learning, right? And absorption. And you know, I know my wife is a huge John Lennon fan, as am
Right.
I.
Me too.
But I'm also an enormous Paul McCartney fan.
Yeah.
And you tend to meet either a Lennon fan or a McCartney
Right.
fan when you're Beatles fans.
Exactly.
And I probably teetered to the McCartney side,
Hmm.
just on his pop sensibilities that I think are very different. Not that John didn't have those, because he clearly did,
Yeah.
um, but just very different. That would be amazing. And then this might be completely out of left field, but probably my favorite band on the planet is a group called Tears for Fears.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
Kurt Smith and Roland Orzabal um, impacted me in 1984 in a way that I can't almost put into words, from the writing and the production and the performance. And they're out touring again, and
They are.
I see
They
them
are.
every chance I can get.
Yeah.
But I want nothing more than to be their front of house engineer at their concerts. And I'm going to say this here because I'm very confident in what I am. I don't believe there is a better mix engineer on the planet that could
Hmm.
mix Tears for Fears the way I would mix the band that I'm in love with. I know every nuance of all of their music, and I know the way that, like, when I'm sitting in the concert, I know the way that I wish I could be hearing it, and I know that the information is there. And I'm not hating on their current engineer at all. I'm just saying I would love to touch that music in an arena. Um, I'd like to drive that car. That would be a fun car to drive.
Did you see that little YouTube video they did when they got back together again? The last short tour they did, and it's a small studio. I think they did "Mad World." Was one of the songs they did, which I love that song. I love the movie. I like
Absolutely,
weird
I do
movies
too.
like that.
I do too. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm an enormous fan. I was working with a guy in Nashville that
Hmm.
he was representing a writer that wrote an album with them, and it was a lost album. It was an album that didn't come out. If you saw the press for this first album that they put out in 18 years, they talked about having a record that they weren't comfortable with, that
Hmm.
didn't get put out because of whatever reason. From what I learned, Kurt had written a handful of songs and Roland had written a handful of songs, and it was this sort of mismatched group of songs that really didn't feel Tears for Fears-y to me. It was, but I got to listen to the album because this guy's artist co-wrote with them. So I sat in a coffee shop in Nashville when I was with him, and he said, "Put on these headphones. You can spend an hour." And I heard that album, and I remember, as an enormous fan, thinking, I understand why that it didn't come out, and I
Hmm.
love the fact that they held on to wanting to do something different. And from what I heard about this new album, The Tipping Point, they actually got together and sat in a room and grabbed a guitar and crafted what became the beginning of this new album,
Hmm.
which to me is a very modern yet truthful remembrance of who and where they come from
Right.
as a duo,
Yep.
and so good, and it's so cool to see some of these legacy groups now
Yeah.
that are making music that still can service a fan base. I mean, they're playing arenas,
Yeah.
like, and I saw them on a tour with Hall and Oates a handful of years ago when they first came out. They were the opening act, where it was a
Mm-hmm.
split show, but they played first. And I'm an enormous Hall and Oates fan.
Mm-hmm.
I opened for them as a solo artist in
Yeah,
the
I saw
early
that.
2000s,
Yeah.
which was the biggest honor. My first band I was ever in when I was in eighth grade was a theoretical Hall and Oates tribute act. We knew like 6 Hall and Oates songs, and we thought we were going to be the next best thing in the world. So to open for them was the biggest dream ever. And then, oh my gosh, to see 2 of my favorites, Hall and Oates and um,
Sure.
Tears for Fears. Tears for Fears sonically
Yeah.
blew them out of the water on that concert tour, which is
Yeah.
difficult to say because they're incredible in their own right. But in my opinion, that night that I saw them, it was just wow,
Yeah.
very cool.
I had John Oates on the show. He's a good guy. He was doing a lot of solo stuff on his own too.
Right,
But
right.
I think they're I don't know if they're getting back doing tours again or not. Both of them together.
John was really sweet to me when I was their opening act. He would sit, there was one night that I caught him standing in the wings on the side
Yeah.
of the stage while we were playing, and he was watching us, and he was
Yeah.
very complimentary and very kind. And this is in 2002, so I had met T-Bone Wolk, who was their
Mm-hmm.
bass player for years, and he was at one point the band leader of the Saturday Night Live band, and
Mm-hmm.
I think after G.E. Smith, and T-Bone was going to produce my next solo record,
Mm-hmm.
and he passed
Uh,
as we were in the initial stages. We were talking about going to he had a place in New Hampshire where he was living, and that's where I was going to make my next album in
wow.
like 2003, and he died of
Yeah.
a heart attack.
Mm,
Such a sweet guy.
yeah. Do you have any Tears for Fears in your set list? I mean, I think he could get away with it.
It's we probably could. The one that we could probably or maybe sneak in would either be Everybody Wants to Rule the
Right.
World
Yeah.
or Head Over Heels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mad World would be cool, but I don't think there's something so edgy about Mad
I
World, right?
know.
Like it's got that sort of
Yeah.
odd drum beat that kind of doesn't make it feel smooth.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas Everybody Wants to Rule the World feels a little smoother.
Yeah.
But yeah, geez. Now, we'd be opening our Pandora's box of other songs that could fit in the
No.
set if we added
Could be going off
something
in
like
different
that.
directions.
Exactly right. So, this is a really cool point. So where we blur the line a little bit, which we talked
Yeah.
about a little bit earlier, is we added songs recently, like okay, so Gino Vanelli, I Just Want to Stop is
Yep. I love
clearly
that.
yacht rock.
I
It's
love
on the
that.
yacht rock spectrum.
Yeah.
It is yachty as hell.
Yeah.
Um,
Yachty as hell. I like that.
Yachty as hell. We just added, get a load of this, I've Had the Time of My Life,
Mm-hmm.
which is not yacht rock, but it's smooth and it's soft rock from a time that I believe it touches people. And we just added it for our show in January at the theater that we played. And we released it. It's on Spotify and Apple Music, the live recording. I put 2 songs out. I put out I Just Want to Stop and I've Had the Time of My Life. And I was floored by the reaction that we got from the audience. And to me, it's like, if we can, like, as an example, we also, years ago, we added All Night Long by Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
And people would, yacht rock purists will be like, that's not yacht rock. But I would be lying if I didn't say at the end of the night, everybody is standing on chairs and tables dancing to Lionel Richie's All Night Long.
Exactly.
My responsibility is to entertain people.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not to make yacht rock purists feel
Right.
like they're not yacht rock bands. So, you know,
Yeah.
we blur it, and I try to choose songs that could be entertaining more so than on
Yeah.
the yacht scale, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I want to talk about mixing real quick.
Yeah.
Um, this is something that upsets me because when I got a good ear for music, I think. And being a DJ back in the late 70s, I mean, I had some great music I played on the air. I've been to hundreds of rock concerts since day one. I mean, when tickets were 650, 550, and 450, and you got three legendary bands, you know. Um, I once in a while I'll take my son. My son's in his 30s now. Yesterday was his birthday, but I took
Cool.
him to see Godsmack
Hmm.
because that's basically him growing up.
Hmm.
They listen to Soundgarden and Nirvana, and that was playing when he was in school and everything. The mixing at these shows, the volume, it's horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
there was one band there. This was a like a festival type thing in an arena, but the volume they're playing this, you can't even hear the instruments. You can't hear the singer. I mean, I was kind of appalled, and a lot of the bands today that play rock, they don't know how to perform live. They think that's what the kids want, but it's horrible. It really is.
Yeah, I've been to a number of shows that haven't sounded great. Like
Right.
recently, another band that I was really influenced by as a young sponge was Duran Duran. In the early 80s, I was a huge fan of their productions,
Sure.
and the work they did with Nile Rodgers to me was like
Yeah.
mind blowing for many, many reasons. And I went and saw them at the Wynn, and I'm not an old fuddy-duddy. Like I believe in concerts. I believe
Hmm.
in hearing a live band
Hmm.
play. I try not to put in ear protection. I do wear a lot of ear protection at concerts just because of all how many years and the cumulative effect for hearing loss. Um, the concert was so loud. I have these real-time analyzers and decibel
Hmm.
meters on my phone.
Right.
It was over 110 decibels,
Doesn't
which
have to be.
is it's not okay to be mixing a concert in a room like, I want to say the Wynn is a small room. It's probably under
Right.
2,000 seats. It's 2,000. It's a tiny room. It's a really intimate place to see a band like Duran Duran that
Sure.
also plays arenas. Um, and I had to leave in the second song. I walked out to the lobby. I asked an usher if they could find some hearing protection for me. They did. And it took all of me not to walk up to the front house engineer at the end of the show.
Thank you.
Literally, it literally took all of me because there have been times when then, people would walk up to me and say the bass is too loud while I was mixing a show in a,
Right.
3,000 seat room. And you want to hear that, but at the same point, like I'm using my instinct as to how to make the room sound the way the room should sound.
Right.
But man, I think sound engineers have a responsibility
They do.
to the people that are there and to the band that's playing
Hmm.
to do the right things, right? And the right things are like 110 decibels for a short, prolonged amount of time will create hearing damage, right? That's not cool for many
Exactly.
reasons. And, I know their manager and I could have sent a note. I chose
Hmm.
not to send a note,
You should
but
have.
probably should have. I probably should have, without sounding salty. But yeah, like there's a lot of acts that can't, as you know, as somebody who's made a career in music as well, there's a lot of acts that can't replicate what they do in the studio
Exactly.
versus how
Yeah.
they do it out live. And it's not that they don't have the technology to replicate it. It's just that, they're maybe not great, right? They're maybe not the greatest of players, or they
Hmm.
can't, for whatever reason, there's other things working against them for creating that live. But when a sound engineer can't help the band, quite honestly, it's the opposite that's happening, is that they're hurting the band.
Exactly.
It's not a
Yeah,
neutral position.
I
It's either
agree.
a help or hurt scenario. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what I've learned. You have to take yourself as a front of house engineer out of the equation. I got to do what's right for the room and for the band.
Mhm.
And if I'm failing, I shouldn't be behind the desk.
I've heard some pretty heavy bands in my time, and they didn't crank it up full blast where you couldn't hear, each instrument, or I saw Black Sabbath back in their heyday. That
Hell
was
yeah.
fine.
Sure.
They mixed it fine. Led Zeppelin, they were fine.
Sure.
They didn't have to crank it up. Skid Row, the worst, heaviest, loudest concert that I've ever been to. I
Yep.
mean, I sat next to I took my son there because I opened up for Kiss in one of their farewell tours.
Yep.
We couldn't even talk to each other, and we were way in the back. I mean, it was so stupid.
I
you
hear
know?
you. Listen, I saw Kiss. I saw Kiss 3 days before our 8-year-old was born. I had been very fortunate to meet Gene and
Hmm.
Doc
Right.
when I was managing a group that Gene and uh, was a fan of, and he would come out to our shows, and Shannon and Sophie would come, and they're the sweetest of people. And I sent him a note when they were coming through, because my my middle son was a huge Kiss fan, and they were
Hmm.
they were touring with Def Leppard. And we got to go do the whole photo with the
Yeah.
band before, and
Yeah.
go. But again, the show didn't kill me sonically, right?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
understand how to mix in the environment you're in, and I don't
Yep.
know if it's without being there. I've been to a lot of hard rock shows. I went to the last summer's tour before we moved here. I took that same son who we went to Kiss. We
Hmm.
went and saw the Motley Crue,
Hmm.
Def Leppard, and Poison stadium tour that was
Right.
around. And again, in a stadium
Right.
outside, so a lot of
Hmm.
open air, not an easy mixing job, but also, not the confines of like an enclosed arena where it's
Yep.
like a basketball stadium or a hockey stadium, that you have a lot of echo
Yeah.
potential and different noise cancellation and
Right.
phase cancellation, all that sort of stuff. And it sounded great. Like,
Yeah.
even, Motley Crue, aside from maybe some performances that were not great, the sound
Yeah.
was really good. But I'm right there with you. Like, I hate going to a show and you're just like, this is not good. Like,
No. No.
should be better.
Yeah. A good example of great sound at a concert is Pink Floyd. They always
Oh
get it
yeah,
right. I mean, it's
right.
like listening with your headphones on.
Didn't they do the quadraphonic thing too? Like, didn't they tour in the
They
80s and
did.
had like speakers
Yeah.
behind, and it was almost they were creating surround sound before.
Yeah. You hear the money, ching, ching, ching.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they played Pompeii, and David Gilmour came back and played Pompeii. That's got to
So
be
cool.
hard to do, the acoustic wise, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
It's very cool. Kevin, you got anything else? Do we cover just about anything? Everything? Is there anything you need to add?
You have been amazingly thorough, and it has been just an honor to sit here and just
Thank
chat
you.
with you about
Me
all
too.
things in my career, and you're learning about you and your career, and music in general. This has been a lot of fun, and
It has
I
been
look
fun.
forward to seeing you at a Docksider show.
Definitely.
We hope
Yeah.
to see you either in Florida or Las
We're in
Vegas.
Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, that would
We're,
be
we're planning a
wonderful,
trip, but I'll wait till you guys are, playing there,
for
and
sure.
we'll pick the hotel close to you guys.
Sounds good.
I want to say special thanks to the legendary Tony Orlando. If it wasn't for Tony Orlando, I wouldn't have found Kevin.
Can we just say something about Tony before we
Sure.
close? Um, I have been doing this for a very long time. Not as long as Mr. Orlando has. He'll tell me he's done this for 62 years. And Tony Orlando has got to be the most selfless, heart-driven human being that I've ever met in the entertainment business. It's notorious for people that are not the greatest of people.
Right.
It's notorious for people that take advantage of you.
Hmm.
There are managers and agents that have stolen millions of dollars from their clients. There are just, people that'll step over you to get where they want to be without any, attention to the carnage they leave in their path.
Yeah.
This gentleman is my guardian angel.
Hmm.
He has been my biggest cheerleader next to my mother and father. He has opened the door to Las Vegas for me and the
Hmm.
Docksiders. I joke and call him my manager, because he has single-handedly said the greatest uh, the greatest shame is when talent doesn't get an opportunity to shine.
Yep.
And he said, I'm going to do everything in my power
Hmm.
to open doors for you. And out of the kindness and just sheer kindness of his heart. And if he were sitting here with us, he is so loving and
Hmm.
sweet.
Hmm.
And it blows my mind that somebody that I looked up to as a young kid, who fell in love with Yellow Ribbon, who fell in love with his television show, who stood in front of the TV and just wanted to be a part of something,
Right.
is now one of my closest friends
Yeah.
and supporters.
Yeah.
And I care about him so much as a friend and as a
Hmm.
father. The father that he is to his children is
Yeah.
amazing, and the husband he is to his wife is just amazing. It's just an honor to say that Tony Orlando is my friend.
Hmm.
Everything else could go away, and that's all I ever care about, is that that
Yeah.
man is a friend of mine that I would do anything
Yeah.
for.
I'm a
And
big fan of Tony's as well.
he's
I love the
incredible. I'm
show.
happy that you got to know him too.
Yeah, we got to talk a little bit offline. We talked about Freddie Prinze, and unfortunately, his best friend
Mhm.
died of suicide. My best friend died of suicide.
So
So
sorry.
I know what he went through.
Yeah.
So, and he's half Puerto Rican, half Greek, and I'm half Cuban and half Syrian, with Syria's next to Greece. So we got some similarities there.
Absolutely. That's cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
but yeah, Tony's a great guy. One thing I have not had in my career is somebody trying to open doors for me. I have had nobody try to help me all these years.
It's hard,
And
right?
yeah, it is very hard,
Hmm.
And right now, I'm trying. This was my first book. I'm also an author. It's called
Oh, very
Check the
cool.
G's. It's about me growing up in the family business in DC, and I'm trying to make it a TV sitcom, a comedy. So I've been talking to people in Hollywood, but it's a matter of finding the right person. I've had a lot of good results. They say the idea is great because it happens in DC. It's a comedy. We need more comedies. It all takes place in a retail electronics store with my family.
Sure.
My dad was a twin. They were, my uncle Joey and my dad were twins, and they both owned the store together. It's an interesting story. I'm going to send you the link so you can read
Yeah,
it.
please do. I was just going to ask where I could get a copy. I would love to
I'll,
support it.
I'll send you that, and I'll send you the script. See what you
Awesome.
think. I'll
I'd
get
love to.
your input, I guess.
I'd
Yeah,
love to.
but
Love to.
the people in Hollywood there, all the people I've been talking to, the producers, they're all young. You know, like you said, they're all young. It's amazing,
It's
and a lot of
amazing.
women.
It's amazing.
I'm
Yeah.
having better luck with the women than I am with the guys. They're
I, I think it's about time that finally changed, right? Like, women, in my opinion, are the smarter sex. And it's been too long that women, especially in the entertainment business,
right.
haven't had a bigger voice, because
Yeah,
I'm just happy. My first two managers were women.
yeah. I get
Um,
along better with the women. I really do.
I loved it. I
Yeah.
really thought, how better to represent me,
Mm-hmm.
to have, I didn't want some alpha male pounding doors down. That to me is like,
Right.
old school, and it's just it's good that women are finally in places that they've belonged in for a very long time.
I just hope they get the same money as the
Agreed.
guys do, because there's no reason why they shouldn't.
Yeah, gender should never be, should never dictate the
No, of course
value
not.
of what someone brings to the table, right? From experience and professionalism and expertise and
You
all
know,
that stuff.
if you've been married a long time, I've been married for 40 years, you know how smart women are. We can't exist
And
without them.
no, no, my wife, I'm grateful for. She makes it all happen.
The Rock, right?
She's the rock and the glue, right? Like
Yeah,
it's everything.
exactly. I agree, 100%,
Yeah.
man. I want to say for more information about Kevin Suker and the Docksiders, go to www.thedocksiders.com. You guys are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You also got www.kevinsuker.com. You guys are on YouTube. I invite everybody to go on YouTube and look for the Docksiders because all your music is there and it's fantastic. It really is. Kevin, thank you, man, for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Tony Orlando, for putting us together. We really appreciate it. Keep in contact. Let me know what's happening, okay? Especially the new dates and what's happening in Vegas.
I will for sure, Ray. It's been an honor being on your show today. I can't wait to get the link that I can share it around as well, and we'll get as
That'd be
many
great.
people in it as we can.
You're my travel agent because I'm basing my trip around you guys. So
There we go.
let me know.
Sounds
I
good,
I
man.
do know Rich Little in Vegas.
Very
I've had him
cool.
on the show and he's still performing there. So
We saw
yeah.
him a couple months ago. We
Oh,
went and
did you
saw him at the
really?
show. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was great.
He did all his impressions on my show. He's a very funny guy. I always loved Rich Little, especially on the Dean Martin roast.
Sure.
He's one of the
Absolutely.
only ones left from that show.
It's so true, right?
Yeah,
There's this golden age of Las Vegas that it's disappearing
I
very
know.
quickly.
I know. There's still some good acts, like Barry Manilow still comes there, Diana Ross, who I've
Mhm.
never seen. I want to go see Diana Ross. She's always been a favorite of mine.
Sure.
So yeah. All right, Kevin. Thank you,
Alrighty.
man.
Very
We'll see
grateful
you.
to you, Ray. Thank you for
Thank
taking the
you.
time and hanging out today.
It's been a pleasure. Take care. My
Likewise.
best to your family.
Thank you so much. You
All
too.
right. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.